Hey adventurers, so today is going to be another book review. This is going to be for Thrawn by Timothy Zahn. This is a Star Wars novel. It's a science fiction, science fantasy kind of book. Technically, Star Wars is science fantasy. This book is far more in the science fiction realm than it is the fantasy realm. Basically, if you don't have stuff talking about the Jedi so much, or the Force, then it's far more science fiction than it is fantasy. There's also a lot of politics in this book. In-world politics, that is. I don't know how many of you guys know this, but I am a very, very big Star Wars fan. There's plenty of projects that I don't love, but there's some that I have really been enjoying, and I don't talk about it on this channel because this is primarily a book channel, and so occasionally I'll read a Star Wars book and I'll get to talk about it a little bit, and that's exciting for me. So Thrawn by Timothy Zahn is the first book in his canon Thrawn trilogy. It's one that I've owned and had on my shelf and wanted to read since it came out. Well, I haven't owned it since it came out, but I've wanted to read it since it came out, and I've had it on my shelf for a long time as well. Both the character and the author have long been a part of Star Wars, specifically in the extended universe, which is now considered Legends, as well as just being extremely well-loved characters and writer. I haven't read anything previously written by him, so I haven't read his Heir to the Empire trilogy or his Thrawn trilogy, as it used to be called. Well, I haven't read them yet. I will read them eventually because I have some of them. I don't know how many of them I have, but I have some of them. And so I will eventually read them. I do, however, know the character, not just from Rebels, Star Wars Rebels, the animated show, but also because I probably studied Star Wars lore a bit more than than is reasonable in many ways, and Thrawn is one of those characters that you can't not know about as a as somebody who studies Star Wars lore. Before I get into the rest of this review, though, I'd just quickly like to mention, if you're liking what you're seeing from an Erudite adventure, we'd really appreciate it if you'd like, comment, and subscribe. So, this book takes us back to a young Thrawn. The Heir to the Empire trilogy and Rebels, Rebels is when he's really established in the middle of the Empire. Heir to the Empire is after the end of the Return of the Jedi, when the Empire has collapsed, when it basically non-existent anymore, but then Thrawn comes back as heir to the Empire and really rebuilds the Empire in many ways, or tries to. But he's an older character at that point, not old as in aged, but he's one who has lived a lot of life, had a lot of dealt with a lot of battles and stuff, whereas this Thrawn book takes us back to kind of the beginning of his journey. It shows his first introduction to the Empire and his journey through the ranks from a nobody to, I don't know if we get to Grand Admiral in the end of this book or not, but he's well along that journey by the end of the book. It really establishes his place in the galaxy and in the Empire. This also does a lot with establishing Eli Vanto and Arinda Pryce. Both are very important characters to Star Wars lore. Eli Vanto is basically Thrawn's second in command and his right-hand man and his sidekick in some ways, it seems, in this book, but I'll get into that more in a second here. Arinda Pryce is a character that is first appeared in Star Wars Rebels and then was put into this story to kind of give her some background and some history. So Pryce is a character that we've known from Rebels, which, like I just mentioned, and really seems to be a bad guy without much depth in Rebels. She does get a lot of background here, though, that really helps us to flesh out her character and her motivations and help us to expand our understanding of her as a character. Vanto as well, though, became one of my favorite Star Wars characters I've recently been introduced to through this book. He seems to be a bit in Thrawn's shadow as basically Thrawn's sidekick almost, but you see that that's really not the case as the story unfolds. In fact, Thrawn's kind of building him up and training him to meet the potential that Thrawn can see in Vanto. And through it, he becomes a really good officer. And it's really cool to see that side of things as well. One of the things I particularly enjoyed about this book was what it showed us about the Empire. Although portrayed in the movies as being the big bad evil Empire, that's really not the case in every aspect. I don't really think that anybody who has looked much into history or storytelling or Star Wars really believes that the Empire is just that one-dimensional, automatically big bad evil. Definitely that's part of it, and it absolutely made some mistakes, and I'm not trying to say that the Empire was good or anything like that. That's not the point of this. Just that automatically, or basically I'm trying to say that there was some nuance to it as well. It's just that in the case of the movies, they have a limited amount of runtime and they have to be very specific in the stories they are trying to tell. So the nuances of the Empire are lost to some degree. We also see the Empire from the perspective, in the movies, we see the Empire from the perspective of the oppressed and the rebels, and the only Imperials that we really get to know are the ones who are at the top, who very much are the power-hungry, greedy warlords type characters. The Emperor, Grand Moff Tarkin, Director Krennic, even Vader to some degree, although he's a much more complex character than that. Well, all of them are, but Vader specifically is less of the power-hungry and more of I don't want to get into it, talk about Vader, because I could talk for way too long about Vader and Anakin Skywalker. So those are the types of characters that we see, that we get to know from the Empire, though. We haven't really gotten to see the everyday of the Empire. We do get to see a little bit of it in things like Star Wars Rebels, in things like The Bad Batch even to some degree, but most of the little things about the Empire, actually we got to see a lot of it in Andor as well. But this was released before Andor. So we haven't really gotten to see the everyday of the Empire, the ones who joined the Empire because it gives them a way to help people, or gives them access to information that they need, or medical supplies, or whatever, university training, any of that kind of stuff. That we don't get to see that, or whatever other motivations there are, or there could be, they're not really shown to us. But we get to see some of that in this book. Thrawn is a brilliant tactician. He's not cruel or power hungry or any of that. He's there for the information. There's a whole subplot line about him. Was he planted by the Chiss ascendancy into the Empire, or was it true that he was actually banished from the Chiss ascendancy and from Chiss lands to this planet, and just only is part of the Empire because that's the only way that he can still do what he needs to do, type thing. And that's kind of one of the subplots that's in this book, and I suspect it probably goes deeper into that continuing through the series. But he's there for information, he's there to protect his people. He just happens to be incredible at his job. He's not actually an evil character in that way. The story is engaging and it's heavily political, but I did find it to be a bit slow at times. Not good slow, but more of boring slow. It takes a while for us to get anywhere and to understand what's happening. I did really enjoy it though. I mean, it's Star Wars and it's decent to really good Star Wars. So like I'm not mad at it or anything like that. It just was a little bit slow at times. And I can't really say that I was as blown away by it as I was hoping to be. But I do love Star Wars, and I definitely want to continue with the series, and especially with Ahsoka that's being released right now, and all the Heir to the Empire stuff that's going on in that series as well. So I want to go back and learn more about the history of Thrawn and everything. So I want to continue reading the series, and then I want to eventually get to the Heir to the Empire trilogy and just see how the events of the Heir to the Empire trilogy are portrayed in the books versus how they are then taken as needed and put into this Filoniverse, as it's kind of being called. So that is my review for Thrawn by Timothy Zahn. Thank you guys for watching an Erudite Adventure. We post videos every Monday and Thursday, and our social media is linked in the description down below. We'll see you guys again soon. Stay warm.